In this garage in Africa, we turned a few sheets of plywood into this scrappy little boat in just 1 week. Today, we're about to launch it for the very first time. The internet says we broke pretty much every rule of boat building while making it. And honestly, there were a few moments during the build when I thought they might be right.
It seems very fragile.
In just a few minutes, we're going to find out whether our homemade dinghy survives its first encounter with water. But before we do that, here's the short version of how we got here. Our dinghy got stolen on a small island off the west coast of Africa, and there was no suitable replacement options. So we built our own 9-foot nesting dinghy using the stitch and glue technique. With limited materials, a lot of improvisation, and a growing enthusiastic group of spectators cheering us on. Now, there's only one question left. Will it float?
Okay, runter. Yahoo! Yeah, it's floating.
You'd probably expect a big celebration at this point. A happy dance, high fives, maybe a dramatic slow motion launch. Yeah, not quite. Here's an honest little behind the scenes moment from live on YouTube. The air was a little bit thick that day and we were in a bit of a mood. And when I say we, I think this video clip speaks for itself. But back to the dinghy. Flo spent a few more hours adding the final touches, some paint and a rub rail made from Peach Store supplies. And over the next weeks, we properly put it to the test. As full-time cruisers, a dinghy is not just a nice to have, it's basically our car. Actually, it's more than a car, because without reliable transportation, we have no way to get from the boat to shore, especially not in rough conditions, and definitely not with the dogs. So we needed to know if this scrappy little boat is up for the job. We rowed it, motored it, dragged it around, used it for daily transport, little and large explorations, heavier loads, and a few successful beach landings. The dogs conducted their own quality control, especially on the bow section. Django's official review, a little too slippery up front. Boga's conclusion, excellent lookout position, almost loungy. Both dogs agree the front is slightly too narrow for two. But the scrappy finish gets full points, because no one has to worry too much when they jump back on board covered in sand, salt, mud, or whatever they found on shore. And honestly, it did a lot better than I expected. The nesting joints held super well. It fits perfectly on deck when taken apart, and even as one piece, we can store it on deck, which is a huge win. Flo also found a way to hip tie it to Santana, which is a great quick solution for moving in calm conditions and for future theft protection at night. There were a couple of things we found out that we did not intend to test. It can pull you off a sandbank if you ever get stuck on one. Don't ask. And it actually won't sink if it's completely full of water and you step into it. Also, no further comments on that one. It will bring you home safely at night against wind and choppy waves, although not very dry. Can't find my glasses. I put them down somewhere here. And now they're gone. Well, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm filming this in northern Germany, whereas the dinghy build was in Africa, make sure you join Patreon or channel membership for real-time updates. And thank you for those who are already supporting these videos. Couldn't do this without you. Now, who's helping me to look for those glasses? This was literally like, I don't know, 5 square meters that I filmed on. How's that even possible? Wow, that was seriously camouflaged. But there was one thing where our quick and scrappy build process did catch up with us. At a certain speed when driving it alone, water comes in through the nesting joint. So yes, it works. And at the same time, there are a few things Flo would do differently if he built it all over again.
Well, so here we go. Finally, we have the dinghy up and running and working for quite some weeks now. And we did some heavy testing. And I need to say I would do a couple of things different. One is the obvious. if I know that I want to build a dinghy, I would try to source better materials, especially the gluing process. So I would buy different glass, and I would definitely go with the epoxy. I have a deep desire that I will never ever have to use polyester, especially not in those temperatures, in my life again. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we have been using this with a very good outboard engine, which could take us places, and we could go a bit faster. And I see two design flaws or things that I could have done different. One is that I would use the I would go for a different freeboard, so I would make it about 10 or 15 centimeters higher, so that if we go full speed, the wave doesn't come into the boat. And then there is the section where the two nesting parts touch each other. And as I did with all of the rest, I just went for it and connected everything with the fiberglass, and so this is not absolutely smooth. And if we go fast enough, just before it starts planing, there is a wave that's coming up, and it's almost a waterfall coming into the boat. And I think that could be prohibited by working smoother. Having that said, during the build, the only thing that I would make way different is I would worry much less about the connection, and I would worry less about being precise, because you can just stitch it together, and then if something is sticking over the other side, you can just smooth it, and then you fill it with a good filler, or you put the fiberglass around it. So especially the back area with the benches, they didn't fit precisely because we had a plan for a different size of the wood, and it worked out completely fine. So I would worry less about this. I would get more clamps, and then maybe have a proper workshop. So that was really difficult, to be in the dirt, on the ground all of the time. So whenever I wanted to reach another part, I had to move it around. So there were tons of scratches while building it, and there was dust, and there were nails, and so it was impossible to keep the space clean. So if you could move that up off the floor, that would be a great win. Yeah, and then the Spindrift does offer a very good description on how to do that, and I strongly suggest to read that. And keep it in mind. So they say there's one part of the build where it is most likely to fail, and that is when you are going from the 2D to the 3D build. So basically you're folding the boat up, and it changes the shape from being a board to being a boat, and that's where you put a lot of tension on the bow section. And they say you have to water it for at least 3 hours, and I did not water it at all because I wanted to be quick, and so we just bent it up and bam, it broke. And so yeah, do that. I would definitely do that again. There's one thing that I really regret: haven't done it way earlier, because it is a rigid thing that we can pull up, and I can finally drive the boat while standing in it. And it's one of the most satisfying things I have done in a long time, because you're starting with a two-dimensional product, and then you end up with a three-dimensional boat, which can actually bring you places, especially if you have an engine.
So what started as a fairly frustrating moment has turned into one of the most satisfying projects that we've tackled in a long time. Now the question is, did Team Scrappy beat the critics? Well, I think it's fair to say that this little boat has pretty much proven itself. Is it perfect? No. Did we learn a lot along the way? Absolutely. I think the most important part is that it has given us back the freedom that was taken from us when we lost it. And I think for a bunch of plywood, that's a pretty good outcome. We'll keep putting it through a couple of tests throughout the upcoming months. And knowing us, I'm sure we'll find out a couple of more things. But more about that next time.